So this video, if you see this video is intended for Skill Hub students of 2021 session. So please make sure you try to get the video downloadable on your device, because it will be deleted after a short period of time, which is just meant to be uploaded temporarily. So on this video, we are going to continue comments on what we discussed last class. Last class we talked about HTML, so we are done with HTML. So I'll just give some advanced concept of HTML. So what we're going to talk today, we're going to talk about image source, how to input an image, and also where to place your code before you put an image. We'll talk about most of those things. Then tools to use and edit and save your image, we'll talk about them. So the first advanced section of HTML we are going to talk about is we're going to talk about HTML5 tables. We have talked about tables before. In the last class we talked about tables. So we are just going to continue from, we are just going to talk about span, row, and column inside of table. What's the meaning of when I say span a row and a column in the table? So I'll be using Visual Studio Code as my editor. The one we have been using is Notepad++, or the mobile app we call A-Code we have been using. So I'll be using Visual Studio Code. Just going to close this. So I'm just gonna add a new file here. A new file. So I'm going to save my file. So I'm going to save it as test.ht. Don't forget, always have .html. So HTML. So I'm looking for HTML. So HTML. Are you see? I'll save my file. So my file has been saved. See there, test.html. Now let's write the code talking about spanning and row column. Spanning. This is what we're talking about. Spanning and row column. So this is what we'll be facing. Okay, so let's see what a span is and what does it mean to span a row and also to span a column. So let's just have this small. So notice, let's just have that. HTML. So we're going to have a body. Don't forget your basic structure of an HTML code. So but before here, you're supposed to have the head. Supposed to have the head, where we will have inside our head we have our title. So in our title we can put anything we like, maybe skill hub, web development, training, (2021). So let's go to our body where we need to write every document. Like I had lastly said, everything written on the body will be displayed on the page. So let's have a simple table. We'll begin with our table tag. I'm using capital case. Closing table tag. So we are going to have our table row. So inside our table row, we're going to have our table head. So inside our table head, let me put something like A, B, C. A, B, C. Let's have another table head. So let's have something like BBC. Okay, so now that is that. Let's move forward. Let's do another table row again. Let's do a second table row. And let's add table head. So let's just do something like 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And let's have the next one. Let's do another. Okay, now let's do a table data. Table data. Table data. I think table data. Now, table data is supposed to be in short form, right? So it's supposed to have table D, table D, table data. Sorry, it's supposed to have table data. Sorry about that. Table data. Now, I'll add a role. Table data. Notice the one we are used to of is table data like this. Then let's say we'll put something like called movies. Movies. We have something called movies. Then if we go to the next one and add another table data, let's say we have another table data and we call it comedy. Comedy. Now let's just add up one more table row. Let's just add one more table row so that everything I'm doing, I will explain it in a go. So let's just put a table head, table head, T head, or table heading. So let's just have something like 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. So let's have a table head. Let's talk about sports. So we're having sports here. Now if I save all of these saved. Now if I go back to where this is located, this should be located here. So if I go back to this test file, sorry, I will just give me a time, let Chrome load up. So we should be seeing our output. So I see what's happening here. This is the output of our program. So I'm going to minimize this screen so that whatever we do henceforth, we'll just have to refresh it. Are we together? Now I'm going to be sharing this screen. Now notice here, what's happening here is that we are saying that the first table head is what? ABC. See ABC here. The second table head is what? BBC. Now under BBC, we need what? The next table head is what? 6 p.m. to what? 7 p.m. And the next under the next table row, notice I said earlier that the last class we had, I said row means the down section. Sorry, the columns are the down section and the rows are the what? Horizontal section. So the vertical section is what? The what? Row, and the horizontal section is what? The column. So this is our column coming down, and this is our row going sideways. Now when you see this, you understand what's a table from our last class we had. Now I want to add the attribute of span row and span column so we can be able to understand the difference. Now let me add a table row. Let me go to this table data where we have this table data under where we have movies, and let me add something called row, table row. I see table row span. If I add table row span and if I save this code, now table row span, notice I have to specify a value when I'm adding table row span. So if I say table row span is equals to, if I say 2, now if I save my code, Control S, and if I refresh here, you notice what happened here was that span simply says that what? In that row, let me give a space of what? 2. Let me span it by 2. Now, if in case I remove here, I say okay, table row span 6, and I save it, and I refresh. If I do that, and I save that, and I refresh this page, you are seeing the space is given, right? Now, let's return back to this. So we have table row span of what? Of 2. Let's say we are doing a span of 1, and we are saving our file. So this should be on save, auto save. So if I refresh this, notice what we have in 1. Now if I change this now, to 2, then I go back again here, I save. Now there's something you should notice. If you do something without saving, you're going to get an icon here that you have done one item of change. One change has been made, but that change has been unsaved. Now let's say I have to move this into 3. Notice one came here. This one says that what? This is one change we just implemented. We have not saved this particular one change. So if I put it by 2 and I save it, notice this place will go away if I save. Notice you can use Ctrl S. So if I refresh this page, are you seeing where 2 carried me to? So that is it. So if I say span by 2, what am I trying to say? I'm saying that what? That table data, I should push that table data row span. I should span it in the whole of that row by what? 2. Now let's go for something called column span. Let's do column span. Let's do column span. Column span. Now if I have to save this, and if I run this, notice what happened. It came back to the normal norms of what it is. So I added column span, but the change wasn't really there because the column span is supposed to be affected on the what? On the column. Like I said, column means when we are coming down. So we have to look for an element that comes down and we apply what? The column span. Now, so that being said and done, we can move to the next. Okay, that is that about spanning row and column. So we can see our result here. You can see our result we have over here. Okay, this is our result. Now there's something more we can still add. We can add border, table border. Let's say we come here, let's make our table more attractive. Let's say we added table border. Let's say table border equals to maybe 1. And if I save this, Ctrl S, and if I refresh this, see, we have table border. Are you seeing our table border now? Yes, we have a table border. So we can also add table border. I can add table border to maybe 6. If I save this and I refresh this, it becomes, are you seeing the border becomes that? Now I can still come here, table border. Okay, that's border for that. Okay, let's leave that. We'll touch other sections later. So this is it. Now if I should go back, let's leave the border to maybe 1, and if I have to come back to this where we added table row span, let's say we have row span of 2, and if I have to save this and refresh this, are you seeing? See, this is our result. So I decided to put this border so we can be able to visualize everything. So look at the movie. We are saying that what? Table row span. We are saying that what? Let that element on the table data called movie should span and occupy 2 rows. That's what we are saying. So what happened here is that what? The movie, the element, this table data called movie has expanded our span up to occupy what? The space of 2 rows. Okay. Now let's move to something else. Let's talk about where to place images in your code. Now, if we are to talk about the image tag, we use to look for image tag, we use the source word img. So let me delete all of this. We are done with tables, and then we'll be done with that image. Let's talk a bit about the image. To input an image, we need something called the image tag, img source. You have to precise the location of where your image is, and you close it. Now let's say I needed to remove this. Let me minimize here. Let's give it that I needed to, let me look for an image now. Okay, let's say I need to get this image. Sorry, let me get an image so we can use. Let's say I copy this image, and I bring it inside this folder where we are saving our documents. And if I paste it down here, now this is this image. I will copy the location of this link, the property of this link. I'll go to property, and I'll look at the location. Are you seeing? Now on other cases, you will need to copy the location of this of this. So that is the location. I will copy this location. I can close that. Then this is the name called coding. I'll copy the location. Then I come to my code back here. Then I'll add it here. I see what I've added. Then I'll add a backslash and I add the name of that image as what? Coding. Now you must specify the extension. The extension can be .jpg or it can be .png. So .jpg. Then I'm going to close this. Now you can add an alt tag. What an alternate tag does is that in case the image does not load, something will tell us that there's an image there. So let me just write something like coding image. Coding image. Then we can add a title to it. So let's say we're adding a title. So adding a title to that. Can add a title maybe called my image. My image. Then we can close that with a backslash and close that. Now, if I am to run this code right now, I'm going to save. I'm going to go to Chrome. I'm going to refresh. Are you seeing the image? This is our image now. The image has what? Appeared inside our browser. Now, there are two ways of adding this image. If you have saved the image on the same folder as here, where you are, look at where our HTML document is. It's on the same folder, the folder called Python projects, as the same folder as what? The image. So you don't need to input all of this lengthy location. So what you just need to simply do is to simply cut away this location. You only need this location when the image is found in another folder. So you just need to put just this and you save your document and you head back to Chrome and you what? You refresh and you still have your image. Are we together? So you still have your image if you refresh. So let's say I have to do something bad here. Now let's say if something goes wrong here with the image, this alternate tag I put is going to appear telling me that what there's supposed to be an image here called what? Coding image. So let's say I went back and I refresh. What's going to happen is that the image is not going to load. Let's just say I have to close this back. Okay, I didn't save my document. Sorry about that. I didn't save my document. So I needed to save that. So let me locate this and open it one more time. So let's say this has to open now. Notice, yeah, I see the image didn't load. So we're having issues. The image didn't load because what? I didn't specify the image name properly because the image is found on the same folder as my HTML document. So if I correct this now, call coding. Are you seeing? Now if I go to here and I refresh, notice the image is going to come out. Sorry, I have not saved this, so don't forget to save. Come here. So if I refresh now, I'm going to have the image. Okay, that is that about the image. So where to place our image in your code? Where should you place your image in your code? Where you can actually place you can place your image before a paragraph. You can place an image after a paragraph. You can place an image inside the start of a paragraph or in the middle of a paragraph. Now there are some tools we can use to edit an image, maybe to reduce the size or to crop it more. We can use tools like what? Adobe Fireworks. We can use tools like Pixelmator. Let me just spell them out here for you. Pixelmator. Can use tool like Pixelmator. Can use tool like Adobe Fireworks. Can use tool like paint.net. So that's software tools. You can use Photoshop Pro. So those are other those documents we can use this website or these applications to edit your image. In case the image is too big, you can use those programs or website to edit your image. Now I want us to play around with something with the image. How about look at this image? The image is too big. Now what can we do to make sure we reduce the image of this the size of this image using HTML? What we can simply do is we can add width. We can add width here. Also we can put width. Let me give it some spacing. You can add width. You can add width. Let's say the width should be maybe 50 pixel px 50 px. You can add height. So the height should be, let's say the height should be 50 pixel. Now if I save this and I go back here and I refresh, Are you seeing what happened? The image has become what? Small. So let's make it more bigger. Let's say we are putting 150 and we are putting here 150. Don't forget to save this. Come over here, refresh. Are you seeing the size of our image now? So the more smaller it is, or the more smaller it is, the more it can lose quality. Okay, so you can use those tools to also edit on them, or you can use HTML to automatically edit your image so that your image can be able to fit very well. Now the next thing we are moving to now is we'll talk about let's remove all of this, the image. We'll talk about HTML5 has what we call Figo and Figo capture. Figo and Figo capture are very important elements in HTML5. Let's add a figure so you can be able to see. So we add a figure. Now inside figure, okay, let me add that image. We're going to need that image back. Let's go and add that image. Okay, let me just undo this so that I can get back that image. So let's say we copy the whole of that. Let's just cut that. So we have the figure. So we are going, let's input our image. Let's put that image here. Let's put that image here, and let's put a line break. So let's put a break. So okay, let's just save this and let's see how our code is going to look like. Are you notice what happened? That means we are putting this image in between what two figure. We are putting inside what the figure tag. So that's why it's having this spacing. Let me maximize this. Are you seeing the spacing by the sides? Okay, let's head back to your code and let's add a break. Let's say we are adding a break here. Let's do a break. I earlier said you can also do breaks like this. Give a space, that's a break. So let's save this and refresh this page. To refresh this, there was a break here. You may not have noticed it. Okay, so that is that. Let's say we're adding a paragraph. Okay, let's say we're adding a paragraph. Let's say we add a paragraph here. So, okay, paragraph. Hello. Now I see the hello is under the image, directly under the image, because what? The paragraph is inside, or is nested inside the figure tag. So the hello is under the image. Okay, let's have something like figure caption. Let's have something like figure caption. What do you think figure caption will be? Figure caption will simply just detail us to. Figure caption is an advanced way of putting a paragraph inside your. It's an advanced way of putting a paragraph where you have your image. Okay. So let's say we take all of that and let's add a figure here. So let's see how it's going to look like. Let's add a fig caption. Let me use that shortcut. Let's say we add a fig caption. Let's put something like let's say the image above is a coding image. So let's have it saved here. Refresh. Now, are you seeing? Guess what I'm saying? Yeah, so that's just the play around with the code. Let's move ahead. Let's talk about file input. How do you set up your HTML? Okay, let me just print out something more about tables. Is that when you are doing your tables, you can also have table foot and table head. So do more research about that. So you can also check out for tables. So there are also tags like we have after our table, you can have table foot. You can have something like T body. Let's say we have something like hello. We can also have something like table foot. Now the reason for table foot and table head simply means when we have when our code happens to be so long, or where our table is so lengthy, we need to split our table into multiple sections. That's when we'll be having table body, table head. We can also have table head, something like this. Table head, we can have table head like this. T head, have table head. So we can also have table head, table body, table foot. So we make use of all of this in case our table is what, very lengthy. Are we together? Okay. Let's move ahead. So this is what gonna be like, because we haven't added table rows and all the rest. That's why it's looking like this. Okay, in an absence to that, let's move ahead. Let's move ahead from our table. Let's talk about file input. File input. Let's talk a bit about file input. So we are talking about file input. File input simply means the way you're going to enter your file in a document. How can we create that in HTML? How can we create that in HTML? Let's do a file input. So we're going to begin with a form. We're going to begin with a form. Close our form. Then let's just write a paragraph. Let's have a paragraph. We're going to put something like upload. That is something telling you that you should upload your image, upload your song. Okay, let's go with song in MP3 format. Let's see, we have that. So let's end with that paragraph. Let's go to the next line here. Let's have another input. So we're going to have an input called input type. We're going to have input type. Now the input type, we're going to have file, input type of file. Now the file, we're going to give it because we are uploading a file, so we're calling the input type a file. So we're going to give it a name. Let's call it, maybe any name you decide to call it, doesn't affect the code. Let's call it user song. So then we're going to have just close that. So we're closing that. Now I'm going to add a bracket. Okay, let me not add that first. So I'm going to copy all of these, copy all of this code, paste it down here. So I'm going to change the file type. This time around, we're not talking about file. The file type, the input type, sorry, is not file. It's called what? Submit. So submit is like a button is going to appear called a submit button. Then the name, we can call it maybe submit button. We can call it maybe, or we can say submit. Let's just call it upload, so that when it shows that somebody can see as upload. So it's called upload. Now if I save this and I refresh my Chrome, I see what we have here. No file choosing means that what? No file choosing is telling us that we have not chosen any file. So upload your song in MP3 format. This is what's found in the paragraph. Choose your file. I see the choose your file is carrying me to enter my document to choose a file. Now if I click submit, it will want to submit. Notice the web page was about to go away, but it could not go because I've not chosen anything. So that is that. Now let's move around and let's tweak it more around. Let's have something now. What if I needed this submit button to come down here? What will I do? I will add a break here. I'll add a break. So I'll add a break tag. Now when I want to use single breaks where I don't need to start from the beginning here, notice the first break we did was BRO. We did this break. That was the first break we did. But what if I needed to put just one time break? I'll put it at the end. This break is going to give a space between here and here. Notice HTML does not work by space, so pardon me for that. So even if I decide to give a space by doing this, it won't change anything. It won't change anything. So I'll add this break here. So let's say I cut this break out here, and I decide to give plenty of space like this. Then I save, and I refresh here. It doesn't change anything no matter the space. So HTML isn't line space sensitive, so I'll need to add a break here. So let's add a break here. Now if I save this now, if I come over here, I refresh, you can see now we have a break down here. So that break has brought this submit button under the file, the choose file button. Now in case I want the lines to go down more than that, I can add another break here, double break. I save my file. So I'm just going to refresh this now. So you are seeing now, because I used two breaks, it's giving two file spacing or two button spaces. If I use three breaks, I'm going to have three spaces downward. So the number of breaks I keep on using, the more it breaks and go down. Now let's talk about an image upload file. Let's talk about the one for image. Now let's, what in case we need to write an image, how are we going to do the one with an image? Let's just say we have all of this. Let's change it. Let's say we're having, let's just work on what we have. Let's say we have something like maybe subscribe to our email letter, something like that. So let's say the input type, because now we are not dealing with file, because file simply means we are trying to get a button that will be able to remove files from your system, right? Now, so in that case, what we are going to use now, because we are talking about image, we are going to look for what the image type. So the image type we are going to look here now, we are no longer dealing with file, because we are not looking for files. So we'll put an image type of text. Then the name, remember, like I said, the name does not matter, so you can change the name to whatever you want. So let's say I'm trying to name it email, because the email is what's going to appear on it. The name is going to appear on the input type you are bringing up. So I'm going to call it email. Let's say I bring the next input type, since we're talking about image, and bring the next input type of what? Image. Now all of this is the advanced concept of HTML5. All of this can be achieved only with HTML5, which is the upgraded version of HTML. So if we move to image now, because I've added image, I will need to add an image source where that image is found. So I'll add CRS. I'm going to add an image source. So because we have an image already here, now notice the thing I like about Visual Studio is that it can bring out that image. Remember, we have an image called coding dot what p jpg, not so. So I'll add that source location. Then I'm going to add something like I'm going to add something now at the end of that location, that's image source. So okay, let's just leave that. So let's take away this upload button, this name. Let's take away that. Now like that. Let's save that. Please make sure you practice all of the codes you are saying. It will help you. You cannot watch me code and become a good developer unless you practice. So if I run all of that, notice what we have here. I see you can add your email here, because I said the input type is what? Text, and the name is what? Email. So it's waiting to accept email. You can add your email here, and you can, I look at what? An image is here. The image will be what? Uploaded. Not so. Not so. So the image will be what? Uploaded. Now, supposing we need to adjust this, how can we, let's say we need to reduce the size of this thing. We can see adjust it inside here. We can just put what? Our width. Let's say we'll give it a width of maybe one. Okay, let's go for 200 pixel. Okay, let's just say we're going with 200 pixel. And let's go with the height of let's say 200 pixel. And let's save all of that and let's refresh. Are you seeing what we have? Okay, so that is just that. Play around with the code and no more. What if I need to hide? So the next thing we're going to talk about, button and hidden control. What if I need to add a button, then yet I need to hide it? So buttons and hidden control. Okay, let's just do something about that. So let's do something about that. Okay, let me add something. So I want to make sure we don't have to remove all of this. So let's play on what we have here. So okay, so the one is going to change here is going to be from the form, because what happens is that this our form can actually do nothing at the moment. It can't do anything because there's no location to a PHP server where it can actually do anything. So it's actually dormant right now. So we're going to add an action, form action, or let's just remove all of this action because it's not necessary at the moment, since we would have a server attached here where we can be able to retrieve the image from or post the image to. So the next thing we're going to have here is we're going to add a button. So let's talk about adding button to our HTML page. Okay, incline to that. So we're going to have a button. We're going to have a button. So let our image be a button. I want us to use our image, this image, as a button. So let's add the img source. Img source. source. So what's the name of our image? Our image is called what? Coding dot what? JPG. So that's our image. Okay, coding.jpg. Coding.jpg. That's our image. That's our image. So we can, you know what, the attributes of image, right? So we can, let's just say, copy all of this. Let's remove the width of this, the width and everything to the end. Let's just copy that and bring it in between here and paste it there. Now this is our image. Nothing has changed from the setting. It's just that we are trying to make sure what our image can become a what, a button. We are trying to use our image as a button. So I'll remove this down text down here. It's not relevant. Now if I save this, you'll notice that our image becomes a button. Now this image has become a button. It's looking big because what, the width here is big. So if I have to put the width, let's say something 20. And to save this now and I refresh this, I see. So it has now become a button. Okay, let me put it to something 20. Sorry about that. Let's make it to something 20. Now so our image has become a button. Now what if we needed to put a normal text or a button? You just simply need to just remove the whole of this image and add your text. Let's say hello. So if I save this now, so hello has become a button. So this is a button in HTML. So when we get to CSS, we'll study how to style this button. So this is a button we have created. This is a button we have created. Now let's move further to what if we need to hide the control behind this button? What can we do? We can do what we call add. Okay, so if we want to add something now, we can do, okay, let's say let's undo this everything. So let me use the image and this. Let's say we have this image. Now let's say we needed to add something. I use something called add. Okay, add. Okay, sorry about that. Add was just simply needed. So when we run this our code, we'll have something by the side called add. See, add. So notice what happened here. Are you seeing what happened? That text called art and the image have all become what, inside one word, one button. Yes, I know you are seeing that. Okay, let's move ahead so we don't make the video to be lengthy. Let's say we want to hide everything. Okay, let's have something like an input tag. Let's do an attribute for input. Let's have something like input. Sorry, let's say input type. Let's have our input type. An input type of hidden. Let's have the name. The name should be, let's have a name. What name should we give it? Okay, let's just call it bookman. Bookmark. So let's have a value. So we're going to add a value. A value can be something lyrics. We'll call it lyrics. Value doesn't really matter. Value, you can change it to whatever you want to change. The name is what's going to appear. So let's say we have that. Now because we are using something called hidden, this control will be what? Hidden. Now just say I have to save this now. Control S. And if I refresh my page now, sorry, this is not saved. Now let's save this. Now notice what happened here. It's not showing. Why is it not showing? Because I use a property called what? Hidden. Now this input type is called what? Hidden. This input type is meant to hide it away. Are we all seeing now? Let's say if I remove this input type to, let's say we have to put it something like a let's call it input type file. Let's say we have to save that. I see what we're going to have. We're going to have this. But because I put something called what? Hidden. Because I put the hidden word, the hidden type, it could not be what? Visible. So when I try to refreshing that, nothing happens, but we actually wrote a code there because what? We use something called what? Hidden. Okay, let's talk about form validation. Form validation. How can we validate a form in HTML? how can we make sure that the user types in something that is correct and the user types it exactly? Now let me remove what is not necessary here. We are still on that form, still working on forms. Now let's put label. We're going to add a label. We're going to add a label. Now let me give this label a name, label for, let me call label for username. Call it label for username. So I'm going to put something between here called username. So let's go to the next line. The next thing we have, let's add something called, okay, we have a username. Now we have a username. Now the next thing we're going to need is we are going to need an input type so that we can be able to capture what we just wrote here. This is a label. It's not an input where you input something. Remember, the input type can be text. If it's text, that means going to give you a space for you to write up something. Okay, let's add up something like let's add an input type of, okay, let's add an input type. So let me just copy all of this and save us some stress of typing. So if I copy all of this, now input type, remember we are looking for input type of what? Text. Input type of what? Text, because we want to type in text. So we're going with the input type of text. Now the name can be maybe, what should we put the name? Anything you put. So you can put it called username. Okay, username. So we don't need a value here. Now what I want us to put is that, okay, I'll talk about that later. So I'm going to save this now. If I put this, if I refresh this, you can see this. So this is what we're having. So somebody can put in their name here, and so there's no submit button now, so you can actually put your name here. Okay, so let's return back to our code. What if somebody puts the name and I want it to be such that if you don't put your name, it will tell you that it is required for you to put your name. What can I add? You can actually add something called required here. So we'll come to our code. We're going to add something called required. So we're going to add something called required. So what is required? Required is that what? Let's just add something like called required, or we can say please put your name. So I'll close that. Now if I save this, now if I refresh, now in case somebody comes like this, now the reason for that now the reason for the required is simply because people can decide not to put their user login and decide to log in without putting their user details. So I want the system to be able to tell you that no, this thing is what is required for you to input your login. Not so. Now let's add something like password. Let's add something for password. Let's do the same thing for password. So I'm going to remove the second line. So I'm just going to copy all of this. Copy. And I'm going to paste down here. So I'm going to do a label for password. Let's call it password. Let's call it password. So let's call it here. So let's just change all of this to password. So we have changed all of that to password. Now the type here, we're going to have a text type. And this, now what's going to happen is that let's add, okay, that is the password name, password. So let's allow everything like that. But let's add up something. Let me copy this so we can make our code more attractive. Now let's add an input type of submit. And let's give it, Now submit, let's give it a value, because on the submit is like a button that's going to appear. So the button does not really require, it needs a value actually. So let's give it a value. Value is simply like a name. So let's give it a value called submit. Let's give it a value called submit. So let's give a value called submit. Now if I save this code, run this code, that's what we're going to have. So we're going to have something called password. We're going to say that word. Now but notice password is coming on the other page. What do we need to do? Yes, give it a try. What should we do? Yes, thank you for answering. We need to add what? We need to add a line break. Notice despite this space, but HTML does not care about the space. HTML is not space sensitive, so we need to add a break here. A break here. Now if I add this break and save, now if I return to my code, refreshing this, we're going to have this. Are you seeing now? Now in case you wanted to go more, you just simply need to just copy this, paste it one more time here, make sure you save, come over, refresh, and you have another space. So this is the submit button. This is it. Now notice what the submit button is saying. It says please fill out this field, because what, I've not typed anything there before. I cannot submit without filling out this field. If I take away this required, now if I take away this required here, I'll be unable to what? I'll be able now to maybe try to submit without filling the name. So look at now. Let's say I can try to submit. It's not going to, this is trying to tell me now. Okay, I've not refreshed it. Have I saved? Now I am unable to submit now, but when it comes to the first one, notice now I can leave the first one without typing anything and go to the second one, but I'm unable to submit. Now the first one now allows me to be able to try to submit even though I have not written any name there. I have not written my username, because what, I removed the section that says that what required. So I removed the required section. So if I return that, you notice that what, if I go back to my code, let's say I return that, I will be unable to submit. It will tell me that what, I need to require this. Now let's say I have to go back and undo all of that, save this, refresh. Now if I decide to submit now, see something, it's going to tell me from the top that please fill out this field. I need to fill out what, this field. Are you seeing this? Okay, so that's that. So that's what we need. The required is trying to tell the user that, oh no, please, you must input your username first before we can continue. Okay, now the next section we should move out is we should talk about HTML5 date input. This is the last section we'll round up with HTML. Let's talk about HTML5 date input. Talk about date input. Let's talk about date input. So what is date input? How do you put dates in HTML? Okay, so I'm still going to need this form. Okay, I will take away just this one. Take away this one. So I'm still going to be needing the label. So the label here, label for, let's say we leave the username. Let's just leave it the username. Okay, let's call it label for. Okay, let's allow the username. It's a label for username. So let's call it something like department, or let's call it like course. Let's call it like course. Okay, let's call it something like the exam date. Exam date. Now let's go to the next one. Let's have the first input type. Let's have an input type called what? Date. Input type called date, and the name is equal to what? Depart. So we can call it name depart. Now let me just copy all of this and make one more section of it. And now because we need a submit button, so let's call it a button called submit. So let's have a button called submit. Then let's have a value. There's a value. There's a value called submit. Now, if I save this code, now are you seeing what we're having? So we are saying that what exam date means that you should put the date you are going to have your exam. Either you should put the month, so it should be in month, there should be in day, and it should be in what? Year. So because I use what? The date input type of what? Date. So that date function came out. I see. So let's say okay, it's supposed to be exam, so we can put on that exam. Doesn't change anything really. So we have this now. So if you want to put in, we'll make sure what it starts with the what? The month, then the day. So what month are we? Let's say we're in the month of August. So August is 08. What's the date or date today? Today can be let's say 22nd. So 2021. So that is that. So I can be able to access calendar from here. Are you seeing the calendar? It's exactly that. You saw I brought out the calendar. So I can be able to submit something. So I've submitted that date. So it hasn't gone to anywhere because there's no server for me to what? Submit that. Now the last section which I just felt like touching, that email and URL. What's the meaning of URL? URL. Let me write that. URL. URL simply means universal resource locator. Universal resource locator. URL simply means universal resource locator. Universal resource locator, which is used to locate the URL. Universal resource locator, sorry, it's used to locate pages on the internet. Now let's talk about the next one. So let me just add up something about that. I'll still need this form. So let's just say we are using, I will take away this label. Let's just add a paragraph. So let's say please, sorry, please enter your email address, some address actually. Now what we have next is we can bring an input type. Okay, since we have one here, so we can bring this input type. We'll call it input type of what? Email. Okay, I've shown you an email before. Input type of email, an input type of email, an input type called email. So we can bring an input type of email. Now an input type of email, what we have to now input type of email, so we can call it the name should, so we should have a name here. Have a name here because it's not a value are for submit. We have a value for submit, so we can call it name should be, so we have a name should be called email. The name should be email, so we can have an email here. Then we can have an input type of submit. So I will need that submit over again. So I'm gonna have an input type of submit. Let's say we are trying to submit our mail, submit. So input type of submit. So we're gonna have value. The value can be called what? Submit. So I'm going to save that. Now if I refresh that, you can see the section for you to write your email. So I can put in my email. There are many mails and all the rest of. So I can put in my mails, put an email at gmail.com and then you submit. Okay, so what is this saying? Say please enter what? An email, because what? It automatically understands the word as sign for what? Mail. So if I put something like gmail.com, if I say submit, it has gone. But notice it didn't go to anywhere because what? There is no server. Okay, so we are basically done with HTML, but there is one section I want us to touch. which we don't need our browser and we don't need our editor. So in case you need this editor, it's called Visual Studio Code. You can actually download it. Check on the Microsoft visualstudio.com. You see it there where you can download that. Now I actually have a PowerPoint presentation for us here. The HTML5 models. What are HTML5 models? HTML5 models simply means the models that make up HTML5, and there are actually 7 of them. The models that made up HTML5. We have the first model is called metadata. We have metadata. Okay, metadata. We're supposed to have another model here, which I just missed. Supposed to have another model. We're supposed to have another model. So the first one is metadata, the next one is embedded, the next one is interactive. The third model is supposed to be heading. The fourth model we are supposed to have here is fourth model we are supposed to have is called phrasing, and the next model is supposed to be called what? Flow. We also have a model called flow. Now, what does each and every one of these models mean? Now, the first model, metadata. Metadata simply means the content that set up the presentation or the behavior of the rest of what? The content. Now, this is the content that sets up the behavior. For example, there are some contents in the website. The metadata simply means the content, the way that metadata is the way your website is going to behave like. So simply means the content that you found here is a metadata. The ones we have at the head. Metadata are mostly located at the head, or you can metadata are located at the head. We have the base, we have the link, we have the meta tags, the non-script, the script, the style. So they are all found what in between what the head tag. Now heading up at the next one, we have the embedded. Embedded what contains the import other sources into the document. Embedded simply means that those other sources that come out from other areas into the website, they are called what? Embedded. Those other sources are called what? Embedded. So maybe you can embed an image, you can embed a video, you can embed an iframe, you can embed an image, you can embed math function, audio. There are many things. So embedded simply relates with those elements that relate to embedding. Now the next section is interactive. And what is interactive? Contains specifically intended for users interaction. Now your website needs to be very interactive. So interactive is one of the models of HTML. So the HTML model says that what the third model says that what your page or your HTML document needs to be interactive. So those are the section where the user interacts, maybe the buttons, the video where the user is going to watch, the audio where the user is going to listen, the a tags where it's going to link from one link to another, the iframe where you have some documents you have written, the images, the text area, the comments area, the like buttons. Those are what interactive model of what HTML5. Now the fourth model is the heading. The heading model is simply defined as what? A section header. It's just like a mini heading, like a particular section called a heading. It's a heading, it's like a section header. It's a header of a part of a particular section. So you can maybe if you are designing a website for a blog, you can have maybe a title page to maybe you are writing a blog, you are designing a blog website that talks about maybe phones. So you can have the first thing that says that what the heading can be types of phone or phones in 2021. That can be what the section header. So you can use things like H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, H group. There's also something called H group. So you can use all of those H tags inside what the heading model. Now the next model is the fifth model is what the phrasing model. This model has a number of inline level of element common with HTML4. This one is mostly within HTML4. An example of tags found in the phrasing model is we have the image tag, the span tag, the strong, the level, the break, the small, the soft, and the more. So there are plenty of other tags, but most of these tags simply deal with what? These are inline tags. They cannot exist outside themselves. They cannot be the base of other tags, but they must live in within other tags. For example, I mentioned the image tag. The image tag can only be embedded between buttons, can be embedded between paragraphs, outside of paragraph, in between paragraph, beginning of paragraphs. We also have the label. The label is where we contain the heading before. Maybe if we are using input text area for typing or submit, we'll bring out the label tag. So moving ahead, we have the flow content or the flow model. The flow model is simply the 6 model, contains the majority of HTML5 elements that will be included in the normal flow of what the document. That means those sections of the HTML document which you are not added, but you are just testing with your document, but which if your normal document you are going to add them, they are called what? The flow. Okay, the last section is called, sorry, the last section was supposed to be, sorry about that, I didn't think that. The last section is supposed to be sectioning. I keep on making this mistake. Sectioning. Sectioning. What's sectioning? Sectioning defines the scope of heading, contents, navigation, and footer. Now, sectioning simply means that how do I want to break my page into sections? Section 1, section 2, section 3. Breaking your code into different segments can be called what? Sections. So you can break it maybe into a section of called a site. A site means a site tag. You can maybe use an a site tag. Let me just write this down here. So you can use maybe we are using, you can use an a site tag, something like this, or you can maybe use you can do articles. You can use an article tag. So you're just simply trying to break your website into various sections. You can use maybe a nav tag. You can use nav. You can use maybe section 2. So all of these are also found under what the section is. So section simply means deals with what the way you are going to split your HTML web page into various what sections. So that is just that. Let me just wrap up with this. There are two types of web storage in HTML. When we are storing objects in HTML, we can store a object locally, or we can store them what we call session storage. So locally means that when we talk about cookies, when you have heard about cookies simply means that they are storing your information in your browser. In case you uninstall your browser, every other thing that you have was stored in your browser has been deleted. Now, sessions cookies means that when you are currently on a website, your data is currently being stored. The moment you leave the website, your data gets lost. Now, what's the difference between local storage, web storage, versus session storage? The difference is that what session storage is destroyed once the user closes the browser. So the moment you're on that website, they are collecting your data to be helping you to make the website more easy to load. The moment you leave that website, all your data that have been collected get destroyed. That's called session cookies or session web storage. Then we have local storage, stores data with no expiring date. So you can store your data. For example, your password can be saved in your browser. Anytime you go next time, it just automatically what takes it up. So that will wrap up our class. So you can you can research more about HTML5 elements like SVG. SVG means scalable vector graphics. You can check things like Eclipse, polygons on HTML5, and HTML5 search box. Okay, talking about search box, let me wrap up with this. Let me have a search box. Let me write the search box. So let me just clean all of this and give us a search box while we run up the search box. So let's say search box. I'm going to have something like input type. What if I need to do a search box in HTML? So input type. So we're going to call it input type. So the input type can be, let's call it search box, or let's call it search item. Or let's just have this as okay. Let's just do something. So let's just have it as my search. Let me just undo all of this. So let me undo all of that. Just take away that. So notice we'll put our, let me get this, so let me use this, make use of this paragraph and call it search bar. Now let me turn all of this input type to maybe my search box. And now let's have a name here. So we're gonna have a name because we want something to come out. Name. So let's just call it search item. Search item. So we have that as search item. So we have that as search item. The next thing we have here is let's have a type. I believe you know how to input a text box by now. We have done that here. We have seen that. So let's just call it search. Search. Now, if I save all of this and I refresh, so you can see our search bar has come out. You can search something from here. Okay, so that will wrap up our class in HTML. That will wrap up our class. So this will be the last. So this is the last HTML class we are having. Any questions, I'm open to answer them. Chat me up personally and I will be able to get to your questions. So the next class, the next video I'm going to upload it, will be the video on CSS, so it can be done with CSS and move to JavaScript. So I'll be ending the video now. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your dedication. Keep on practicing. Note, remember, you can't be good at this without practicing. Thank you.